Suprememagus, Chapter 11. I know that I know nothing. Having officially learned how to read and write, Lid practiced every day. While his family considered him a genius, he knew better. Needing to practice hard to memorize just 21 letters and 10 numbers, Lid did not feel much brilliant. Striking the iron while it was still hot, he asked Raz to carve for him a wooden ruler, 50 centimeters long and 3 centimeters both high and wide. In the front he had engraved all the alphabet. On the back, the numbers. It was Lid's clutch during his homework, a tool necessary for him to be free of practicing any time without bothering his parents. Raz was still on cloud 9, so he didn't make any question about the oddly big size Lid requested. He could have easily made it much thinner and shorter, make it easier to carry around. But Lid refused the proposal, begging him to fulfill his wish. Lid had not missed Orpal hostile glare every time someone called him a genius. He had to be sure for it to be now easy to break or go missing by accident. It was also the perfect pretext to always carry around something he could practice spirit magic on. When the weather finally cleared up, Elena decided that it was the perfect moment for Tista to be checked out by Nana. With all the cold and wind during those last days, no matter how much effort Raz and Orpal had put in the house maintenance, it has still been kind of drafty. Tista had been coughing enough for Elena being seriously worried about her. So she took the mule cart and brought Tista and Lid to the village of Lutia. The bad weather had lasted long enough, and the accumulated farm work needed everyone's help to be finished before another frost wave arrived. She had to bring Lid along. He was too small to be left alone. After stuffing them with the warmer clothes they had, the trip began. Lid was really happy. It was the first time for him seeing the world outside the farm's bounds. There was much he could learn from such experience. On the road, they were bothered more than once by stray rats. They were wasp-like insects with venomous sting at the end of their abdomen. Compared to Earth's wasp, they were much hairier and blue instead of yellow. "Why in the great mother name are they still around?" Elena complained. "They are supposed to be asleep during winter." One rat was particularly stubborn, and despite all their shooing, it kept going back until it got too close to Tista for comfort. Lid slammed his hands hard, missing it entirely. He was still nimble as a brick, but his spirit magic wasn't. It had already reached a radius of full 10 meters, radius of effect. So the rat was squashed effortlessly. Lid showed the prey with pride. "Don't worry, big sis. I'll always protect you." After hugging him, Tista was really curious about the dead insect, but Elena was still worried by the venom. So she threw it away. They resumed their trip. When they came in sight of Lutia, much of Lid's doubts got cleared up. It wasn't just his family. The whole village resembled closely one of those early middle-aged drawings he had seen in history books. There was no sign of any complex technology. Even a windmill or a watermill would have been considered a marvel of science. When Lid asked Elena about the village, she explained that only artisans, scholars, and merchants lived there. The rest of the population lived in their own farms, tending the fields and raising livestock. Lutia consisted in a few dozens of one of those two-story high wooden houses, well spaced between them. Not even one was made out of stone or bricks. There was also no road pavement of any sorts. The space between the houses was just like the road to the village, bare earth and mud. From the signs hanging outside the buildings, he could spot a blacksmith, a tavern, and a tailor shop. The bakery didn't need any signs or advertisement. The delicious smell that came out its chimney was enough to make every passerby mouth watery. Lid's hunger struck so hard that he already knew what he would have dreamed about that night. When they arrived at Nana's house, Lid was surprised, noticing it was bigger than their own. Yet, Elena had told him more than once that Nana lived alone. In his eyes, it meant that either she was from a rich family or more likely healing was a lucrative business. Lid decided that he had to master light magic as soon as possible. The door was open, and inside, Lid felt the familiar feeling of a doctor's waiting room. Inside, there was a single huge room that smelled of medicine herbs and incense. At the end of the room, on the left, there was a door, probably leading to Nana's living quarter. On the right, there was a huge white curtain, behind which Nana was visiting and treating the patients. The rest of the space was filled with benches and chairs, and many of them were already occupied. It seems that many families had decided to make use of the good weather. Elena removed all the extra clothing from her children before instructing them to be quiet and don't disturb others. The waiting room was filled with bored mothers, and soon Elena joined the chatting, sharing her experience and advices with them. Lid could wander around undisturbed. The women were too busy keeping their children under control to take notice of his existence. The room was bare and uninteresting, but once he got close to the curtain, he stumbled on a treasure. He found a small open cabinet filled with books about magic. Maybe in this world is the equivalent of a doctor hanging his degrees and masters. Many of the titles were specific about an element or its application, but one caught his eye immediately. It had "The Basic of Magic" written on the cover. After checking that no one was paying attention to him, he grabbed it and started reading. "I'm only 3 years old. I can afford better to ask forgiveness than permission" attitude. Lid then moved to a corner, giving his back to the curtain, hoping to go unnoticed as long as possible. It was clearly a book for beginners, so he skipped the introduction, going straight for the element's description. Lid discovered that water magic was not just about conjuring and manipulating water. It also allowed the user to lower anything's temperature. Any magic apprentice was supposed to be able to generate ice and use it as a means of both offense and defense. Air magic too had an ability that he never taken in consideration. Air magic's highest peak was weather control. But even at the basic level, a mage could generate lightning. Fire and earth were just plain and simple as he had pictured them all along, so he moved to the last 2 elements. While reading, it became clear to him that because of magic, whoever had written the book had no idea what anatomy was. The book would speak about the importance of keeping a wound clean. There was no use of terms like disinfection or sepsis, so he barely found unknown medical terms. Lit remained dumbfounded upon discovering that light and darkness were explained together instead in the separate chapters. According to the book, both elements were the bread and butter of any healer. Darkness magic could be used as a weapon, but this was not explained in detail. The author was very clear, stressing out the fact that he was not a fighter and that beginners should never bite more than they could chew. When he proceeded to explain that darkness magic wasn't either good or bad, just an element like others, it was an invaluable tool for a healer, since it allowed to clean wounds, tools, or even to fumigate houses from rats and insects to avoid the spreading of diseases. Also, it was the only way of getting rid of parasites that had grown inside the patient, since light magic would allow the healer to detect their presence but could do no harm to them. Light and darkness worked best when used together. Light magic's specialty was the ability to perceive life forces and scan them for anomalies. It also allowed to correct such anomalies and to guarantee an instant recovery from diseases. Restoring broken bones was more difficult and was explained in another chapter. Lit felt incredibly ignorant and stupid. He could have discovered most of those elemental properties on his own if he hadn't been blinded by his narrow-minded superstition. How could I possibly have been so idiotic? I have lived here more than 3 years, and I'm still thinking like it's a video game with fixed rules and levels. Darkness is evil and light is holy, or something? No, this is science, damn it, the same one I studied all my life. If fire magic is converting mana into heat, then water magic is nothing but converting mana into cold, condensing the water in the atmosphere and turning it into the liquid state. It's all so obvious. It's like the damn Columbus egg. He was about to turn the page and learn about healing broken bones when a firm hand squeezed his shoulder, locking him into place. That's not a toy, young man. I really hope that you have not damaged it. Otherwise, your family will have to pay for it dearly. Suprememagus, Chapter 12. Learning a Trade. Lid had been so engrossed reading to forget where he was, throwing caution to the wind. When Nana caught him red-handed, he was startled enough to yelp. I thought I knew every single rascal, but I failed to recognize this one. What's your name, kid? Lit. What's yours? He replied while making puppy eyes. Nana was now more curious than angry. Lit? Do you mean Alina's little imp? No wonder your face is new to me. You were just a newborn the last time I saw you. Nana present had made the chatter stop. Some women wanted to ask her how long until their turn. Others were just curious. Elena jumped from her chair, apologizing on Lit's behalf. There's no need to apologize, Elena, Nana said. No harm, no fool. The little imp has not damaged the book while playing with it. Yes, Mom, there's no need to apologize. Lit hated when someone spoke of him like he wasn't there. And I was not playing with it, I was just reading. Reading? Young man, how old are you? 3 years and something? If this is a joke, it's not funny. I never expected one of Elena's children to be such a liar. He is not lying. During the last storm, Lit was bored, so he asked his father to teach him how to read, write, and count. Here is proof. Elena handed Nana the wooden ruler. Elena's rebuttal had caught her by surprise. She realized to have struck a nerve. After studying the ruler, Nana had to admit it was a clever learning tool. Tell your husband that this thing is really a good idea. He could sell it to Teacher Howell. It never hurts to have extra money. Elena wouldn't let her change the subject, not until she apologized for calling her son a liar. Ras didn't invent it. Lit did, so he could study alone without bothering anyone. Nana was shaken by all those sudden revelations. Her pride wanted to avoid apologizing, but insinuating that Elena too was lying in front of all those people would have hurt her whole family's reputation. So, young man, how much is 7 times 6? 42. Nana took the book from Lid's hands, and after opening a random page, she gave it back. What is written here? Start from the top of the page. Lid suppressed a smirk. The first thing to understand while studying magic is that it's just a tool. Anyone can use it, but only few can actually use it properly. In fact, okay, that's enough. I owe you an apology, Lid. Yet she said it while looking at Elena. Seems your son is indeed blessed by the light, dear. The room was once again resounding with chatter, but this time they were all discussing the same topic. What does Nana mean with blessed by light? Isn't that just a fairy tale? I wish my son was that smart. Every morning just sending him to school is a war of attrition. Not to mention getting some actual results. Those were the most common comments. Lit kept hitting the iron while still hot. Can I? Suddenly he realized that he ignored the word borrow. Take it with me for some time. I will return it as it is, I promise. And what would you do with it? Can you already use magic? Nana's reply would have normally been quite different, but she had enough surprises for the day and could not afford anyone's sarcasm or skepticism. Yes, I can, Lit replied before realizing his mistake. I'm an idiot. I just blew my cover. Years of careful planning ruining by this big mouth of mine. The only thing I can do is damage control. Really? And what can you do? Yes, Lit, what can you do? Elena rebuked. Her right foot was furiously tapping the floor in annoyance. Lit knew he was in trouble. I can do wind and water chore magic, he said with a low, apologetic tone while staring at his own shoes. I'm sorry, Mom. I know you prohibited me to use any magic, but everyone else in the house always used it, and I was so bored. The chattering increased in volume. Helena was really angry, but she could not scold him in public, not when they were staring at them with admiration. Nana seems really impressed. Maybe this is a turning point in Lid's life. If she takes him as her apprentice, we could have a healer in our family. I can't ruin this opportunity. So she kept silent, wondering about her son's future. Would you please show me? Nana asked, smiling for the first time. In for a penny, in for a pound. Here goes everything, Lit thought. Breza! Lit twirled his middle and index finger 2 times, creating as many tiny whirlwinds that he used to quickly sweep the room. He pretended to lose control from time to time. His goal was to impress, not to brag or scare people out of their wits. Oh, oh, oh! Nana laughed in admiration. She could see more and more of her in the little imp. Nana too had been a precocious brat. When she was his age, her talent was better, but Lit was still a sight to behold. Usually men were less talented for magic, since women with their prerogative to give birth were naturally more in tune with the life force of the planet. Some call that word energy, others simply call it mana. Also, country boys were usually blockheads, more inclined to hard works in the fields or in the military rather than spend years on books. Now, I want you to do a thing for me. You said you can conjure water, right? Lit nodded in response. Now call upon water. It doesn't matter how little, but then you have to not let it fall. You must make it float like this. A perfect sphere of water, the size of a fist, appeared a half-meter from Nana's open hand. Lit could not comprehend the why of such specific request, but he complied. Jorun, he conjured less than a glass worth of water, keeping its form irregular and unstable. Lit could not afford any more mistakes. His focus peaked trying to make his lack of control convincing. The water floated for 3 seconds before falling off. But instead of hitting the floor, it started floating again, becoming another perfect sphere orbiting around Nana's palace like the moon does around the earth. Lit was flabbergasted, not by Nana's control on the mana flow. He was already able doing the same, if not better. He could not avert the eyes from the spectacles in front of him. Both spheres of water were constantly spinning on themselves, reflecting everything around them. They would capture the light from the sun, turning it into sparkles of rainbow. Lit had always seen magic like a force to be reckoned with, a great tool to build his future with. But he never thought of it as beautiful. For the first time in over 3 years, he was not pretending anymore. He was simply amazed, staring at the dancing lights while the memories of his old life flooded his mind. He suddenly remembered all the hours that he spent as a kid, hiding in the planetarium together with his little brother Carl. They would dream of becoming astronauts, to run away to the stars where no one would ever hurt them again. And just like that, his grief returned, stronger than ever, fighting the joy out. The pain for the loss overwhelmed him. Tears started streaming from his eyes. Lit, are you all right? Elena's voice woke him up from his stupor. Realizing how weak he had allowed himself to be, Lit felt deeply disgusted. Water is just water. No need to get soft over a measly light show. Soldier up and follow the plan. Lit stilled himself, sealing away all the feelings that he deemed useless. I'm done getting hurt, he thought. Yes, Mommy, I'm alright. I was just moved from the old lady's magic. My name is Nerayalit, but everyone calls me Nana. Why Nana? Nana was usually a term of endearment used for the family's grandmother. You see, when I was still young maiden, everyone called me by my name. But the time passed, and I helped so many children come into this world that they started to call me Mama. After even more time passed, those children had children of their own, and they started to call me Nana. She ruffled Lid's hair. I have a proposal for you. Now you are too little, but when you become 6 years old, instead of going to school together with those blockheads, you could come here instead. So you could read those books as much as you want, and maybe you can learn a trade, mine. Lid titled his head, playing dumb. I don't know, you don't seem nice. I would like the books though, he replied while hiding behind his mother, only half his face visible behind her legs. Elena didn't know if to laugh or cry. Her dream had come true, but Lee didn't understand what he was turning down. Please excuse him, Nana. He is just 3 years old. He has no idea what he is saying. He doesn't even know the importance of apprenticeship. 3 years old, Nana repeated. It's almost too good to be true. But you are right. If he had to choose between gold and toys, he would probably pick the latter. We'll have this conversation again 3 years from now. She knelt down, looking Lit straight in the eyes. If you don't become dumb as all other boys in this village, I'll take you as my apprentice. If you are still interested in magic and books, of course. Lit nodded, grabbing his mother's gown, looking for protection. His weak and scared appearance hid his inner rage. 3 years? I could have as well starved by then, and all because of you, greedy hag. He was so sick of being hungry. He wanted to bite her out of frustration. Calm down, Derek, and remember all your lessons. Suck it up and grow stronger, because only strength will make you free. Only power will keep your family safe. Suprememagus, Chapter 13. Learning a Trade Again. Nana's work ethic didn't allow for favoritism of any kind. Lid may have been her future apprentice, but Dista had to wait for her turn like everyone else. Lid hadn't been so happy of being stuck in the queue since his student days in college, when he would use every single second to review his weakest subjects. So much to read and so little time. Better to cram light and dark magic since they are the only elements outside the physics as I know it. In the best case scenario, it will take years to get my hands on a book again, and there is only so much I can learn as self-taught. When it came their turn, he studied carefully how the healer performed the light magic Vinireratu. It was the same life force detecting spell she had used on him 3 years ago, and this time he had a better understanding of magic and a way better standpoint. Being next to her, Lid could appreciate every gesture and hand movement Nana used to amplify the spell effectiveness. The light enveloped Tista's body, quickly turning gray around her chest, clearly outlining the shape of her lungs. I have good news and I have bad news. The good news is that Tista condition is the same as always. There is no sign of degeneration this time. The bad news is that it doesn't seem to be improving either. I'm afraid that she will remain like this forever. The more she grows, the lesser the chances that her body will be able to somehow fix itself. The air in the room turned heavy. A lifetime of illness was barely better than no life at all. Lid was so shocked to completely forget about the books. The whole world meant nothing to him if he could not share it with the only three people he loved and trusted. They came out of Nana's house in low spirits, returning home without speaking a word. Once arrived, Elena shared the bad news, searching for Ra's arms before starting to cry. One by one, the whole family burst into tears, hugging each other in search of comfort. Lid allowed himself to cry, cursing the cruel fate that had befallen his sister. What good is magic if I keep being helpless? Why do I keep reincarnating? Simply to replace one's living hell with another? Is this just bad luck? Or is it my fault? Could it be that in some previous life I committed such an atrocious act that now all those I love are cursed? Could this be my punishment? During the following days, Lid kept second-guessing every life choice he had made, before accepting the fact that bad things happen. Tista was already ill when he resurrected for the second time. It couldn't be his fault. Having been accepted as Nana's apprentice, he could now practice magic openly. Soon he proved capable of cleaning the whole house by himself, relieving his mother and sister from all the chores. Thanks to darkness magic, cleaning dishes and cauldrons became a matter of minutes. Nothing organic, be it food residue or grease, could escape being turned into dust by a single spark of energy. He also made countless experiments with light magic in search for a cure. Yet, all he managed to do was keeping the symptoms at bay. Tista now needed much less treatments from Nana, but was still prisoner in her own body. This caused Orpal to hate him more and more. Show off! How am I supposed to enjoy my life with him constantly breathing on my neck? Not only Lid shares the housework with Mom, but also spends so much time with Tista. Mom and Dad always praise him for his so-called talent and intelligence. And now they never shut up about Lid saving the family a lot of money by tending Tista condition on his own. No one gives a damn about me wasting my time and sweat doing all the farm work. Gods, why did you let him live? Why did you give me any talent? Oblivious of his brother's feelings, Lid was not coping much better. His magic power and comprehension of mana kept growing, but it could not erase the perpetual taste of failure that accompanied him. In the following year, he could not feel any joy regarding magic. Every discovery was useless, all his power meaningless. And so he was finally 4 years old. The period between 4 and 6 years in Lutia was called the Golden Age, since the child was big enough to have some freedom and too little to be of any help in the daily activities. They would be allowed to play all day without a care in the world. It was the perfect time to make friends and grow closer to one's own neighbors and deepen the ties between the families. The day of his 4th birthday, after he finished the chores Elena introduced him to all their neighbors before returning home. He was supposed to socialize and play, but Lid had other plans. There was no amount of failures or grief that could make him forget for long the hunger that consumed him since he was barely 5 months old. Ra's farm was on the western edge of Lucia's farmlands, a little less than a kilometer apart from the great woods known as Thron. Despite the pretentious name, it wasn't particularly dangerous. The people who lived in the nearby villages depended on the forest as their primary source of timber for their everyday life. Thron was also abundant in wildlife, so those bold and lucky enough would go hunting all year around, searching for precious meat, warm fur, or both. It was impossible to meet monsters in the forest unless one went several kilometers deep. Since there was no need for exploring Thron in detail, the inner area was still uncharted territory. There was a reason if Lid had never practiced martial art in the New World, not even the footwork. The constant practice of magic required a lot of energy, and his household lacked the necessary resources for his training. Lid was already skinnier than all of his siblings. Any more exertion and he would turn into a pile of bones. He needed food. But being a city boy, he knew nothing about butchering. He needed a teacher. And that's why he was headed for the house of Celia Fasterow, the only hunter among their neighbors. The problem is that I have no idea how to get her to help. I'm still too little for apprenticeship, and even if I wasn't, it's unlikely she had not heard about Nana's offer. She has nothing to gain helping me. I can only hope she is a kind and benevolent woman. Celia's house was a single-story wooden house, much smaller than Lid's, about 60 square meters large. There was no henhouse or barn. Except for the space in the near proximity of the house, the fields were uncultivated, full of weeds, tall grass, and whatever the wind had planted over time. She clearly has no interest in farming and stock breeding, and that's good news. Means her business is good enough. I wonder what's in the shed near the house. It's almost as big as the house itself. Lid knocked, his inwards tied in a knot from the nervousness. The door opened almost immediately. You again? Are you lost or something? Celia was a woman in her early 30s, 1.7 meters tall, the skin tanned from years of long exposure to the sun. Her black hair was kept short with a haircut identical to Earth's military standards. She could have been considered very cute, but the small bosom, coupled with her sharp eyes and rough attitude, made her manlier than most farmers. She wore a leather hunting jacket over a green skirt, green cargo pants, and brown hunting boots with a soft outer sole to limit the noise made while moving. Hi, Miss Fasterow. I need a favor. Could you please teach me how to skin and gut animals? Celia raised an eyebrow. Why? Because I am hungry. Not having any lever on her, Lid had decided that truth was the best policy. I have been hungry long enough to forget how being full feels. I know I can hunt, but I also know that without proper handling meat goes bad and it's inedible. No, you got me wrong. I mean, why should I help you? What's in for me? Now she was knitting her eyebrows. What do you want? Lit asked while bottling up the urge to kill her slow and painful. He was hungry enough to see her as query. Honestly, I don't believe a runt that barely reaches my belt can hunt anything, not even a rat. And since stinching is a waste of time, it demands compensation. She scratched her chin, searching for a deal bad enough to drive the pest away. She never wanted a child of her own, let alone dealing with someone else. So if you want to learn from me, first you must bring here some game. If you mess up while playing butcher, you ruin my merchandise, wasting my goods and time. So here's my deal. Whatever you bring me, I'll teach you how to skin and gut it. But half of it is mine for the trouble. Take it or leave it. So much for the kind and benevolent woman. This is plain extortion. Lit thought. I'll take it. How long will you stay home? He replied. I'll be here all day. I have a lot of work to do. Why? Because when I get back with my prey, I'll need your help. Don't forget our deal. Lit turned around, moving towards the woods. Seeing the little runt act all tough without a bow, traps, or even just a bag for the game, Celia could not help but laugh out loud. That until the door suddenly slammed on her face, sending her butt first on the floor. After getting up, she went to the nearest window. Lit was still in the same spot, but his face was turned towards her door, his eyes glowing bright in the dim light of the dawn. After getting at the edge of the woods, he activated the light spell, Life Vision. It was one of his creations from the last years of practice. By infusing his eyes with light magic, Lit was able to see living beings as colored, while the rest of the world was turned into shades of gray. The stronger the life force, the bigger and brighter was the light emitted. This was why he could easily spot animals even if they were hiding underground in bushes or inside a tree. Lee did not need to hunt something big. As long as it was meat, it was the perfect prey. Most of the animals would run away as soon as he came too close, but not all of them. Birds and squirrels perched on trees, branches felt safe, but Lee's spirit magic had reached a range over 20 meters. They were all within his reach. He only needed to extend his open hand towards the quarry, then squeeze and turn it for a neck to be broken. In less than 20 minutes, he had killed 2 odd feathered birds and 2 squirrels. I could catch more, but I want to pay that harpy as little as possible. While returning to the hunter's house, his greed was debating fiercely with his rage. Damn it, I wish I could just ask my father. Our farm has a hen house. We eat chicken, so he must know how to butcher it. But if I do, then I'll be forced to share my quarry in equal parts. And if there is something that I hate more than being robbed by that harpy, is the idea of Warple and Tryon having the same amount of meat as me, or worse, even more being older. I hunted this game. This meat is mine. They only be allowed to eat my scraps when and if I want so. When Lid got to the door, he had calmed down, the rage hidden by his business face. He took deep breaths before knocking again. When Celia saw him, was on the verge of mocking him, calling him a quitter for giving up in less than 1 hour. But then Lid showed her his game, making her whole never underestimate how hard the hunter's job is. Speech died in her throat. Suprememagus, Chapter 14, Learning a Trade Again, Part 2. How did you do it? Celia asked, still recovering from the surprise. Magic. I am blessed by the light. Didn't you hear the news? Celia started rummaging her brain until the answer made sense. Oh, I get it now. You are the magic kid that's on everyone's mouth in Lutia. That explains a lot, including your shitty attitude. Excuse me? You found a scrawny kid on your door asking for help? And what did you send him away with a rip-off deal? Even laughing at his efforts, and I'm the one with the shitty attitude? Lit was now so angry that even the idea of sharing his prey did not seem so bad anymore. Celia laughed out loud. Kid, you really are funny in the head. First, when you come at the door of a stranger asking for help, the best you can hope for is to be sent away with a polite kick in the butt. If I had to comply with every madman's request, I would be broke in a jiffy. Second, you had the guts to slam that door at me and then come back like nothing happened. That's a shitty attitude. Listening to her point of view, Lid could only agree. For 4 years he had been a recluse, his only interaction with the family members. He had got too used to getting a yes as an answer, forgetting the basic social interaction rules and even common sense. His hunger didn't help either, making him single-minded and prone to anger. Lid realized that Celia was right, and what he did that morning was just a temper tantrum. I'm really sorry, he said earnestly, looking her in the eyes. I have no excuse for my behavior. I would understand if you wanted to call off our deal. Celia started laughing even harder. Hold your horses, kid. I said that you are crazy and rude, and I like that. As you so kindly pointed out, I'm a bit of a jerk myself. And dog does not eat dog. Our deal is still valid. She handed him a small knife with a wooden handle. Rule number 1. Bleed out the game as soon as possible. If the blood starts clotting, the meat is ruined. Make a deep incision in the neck and then hang them upside down to make the blood drain out. She pointed him to a clothesline. When you don't need the fur, I always cut off the head directly. Makes things faster. Lid put down the knife and conjured water, making it coat his whole hand. Then he froze it, turning it into a razor-sharp blade, cutting off the bird's head, using the knife only for the squirrels. Celia whistled with approval. Nice trick. You don't shy away from blood, don't you? As I have told you before, I am hungry. Too hungry to care about big round eyes or warm fur. I only see them as food. Celia gave him thumbs up. That's the right attitude for a hunter. Then she took the animals and hanged them, thinking the clothesline was too high for Lid to reach. Lid did not feel the need to correct her. Since we are building a master-apprentice relationship and all that crap, mind you telling me why come to me instead of your father or mother? I don't know your family, but this is something that any farmer knows how to do. It would be too expensive having someone else butcher your livestock. Indeed, Lid concurred, pondering how to answer. He looked at her straight in the eyes before asking. Just between us, master-apprentice secrets and all that crap? Celia nodded, surprised receiving an actual answer instead of a cranky remark. As far as I can remember, me and my brothers never had a good relationship. Things are pretty bad, especially with my older brother. Lid decided that he needed to take that load off his chest. Talking to a stranger was the best way to relieve his stress, and ruin Orpal's reputation. Truth was indeed the best policy. I do not know if it's because of my magic, but I always eat a lot. That would not be a big deal if I hadn't 4 siblings, one of which has a congenital condition. Her treatments cost a lot, and that is barely necessary to keep her house ridden. Thanks to God I'm an only child, but what does that have to do with your older brother? Lid pretended not to have heard her. This means that despite my parents' hard work, we don't have much food on the table. Lid pointed at his thin arm to make her feel guilt. And my brother is growing boy too, so he would like to have much more chow than he actually has. From time to time, especially during winter, he had fits of rage where he would accuse me of everything that goes wrong in his life. He often said things like, "Why the heck do you have so many children if you cannot properly feed them? Why does he have to get almost as much as food as me? He does nothing while I work my ass in the fields all year around. This is not my brother. This is a leech that is sucking my life away. I wish you died that cursed day." He did his best Orpal impression. "Are you making this up to make me feel guilty, kid? Because that's sick." Celia was knitting her eyebrows, doubting someone could say such things to his little brother. Lid shook his head, singing, "I wish." "Did your father give him a good beating? Maybe that could help him come to his senses." Lid shook his head again. "No, this started when I was still very little, and even when my father resorted to spanking, it only made him worse. To the point that I now sleep in the girls' room." Celia bit her lips to avoid making a sex joke. "Too soon." "Too soon for what?" "Nothing. Please continue." "That was until a year ago. Then I started practicing magic. As soon as I was skilled enough to do almost all house chores by myself, sometimes I helped with the livestock too. I even managed to keep my sister's condition under control." Lid took a deep breath before finding the strength to add, "most of the times." "Then everything should be good now, right?" "Wrong. The house needs repair, and so does the barn and most of the working tools. If you also take in consideration all the random shit that happens and takes priority, I don't see our situation getting any better soon, and neither does my brother. Now, he can't put the blame on me anymore. So the last time he took it out on my ill sister, saying things that I refused to repeat out loud." Lid spat on the ground to get rid of the dirty taste the memory gave him. "To the point of saying that it would be better for her to," Lid pointed at the hanged games, "to put her down like an animal? Kid, we may be jerks, but your brother is a lunatic." Lid gritted his teeth. Remember Orpal's exact words. "It would be much better for her, for all of us. She can run, she can work. Tista will never be able to make friends, fall in love, or have children of her own. She is bound to be a burden for the family. And what will happen when you guys are no more? Who will take care of her? Eliza? Or maybe the little leech wonder?" Lid could still vividly recall his mother crying from those cruel words. Eliza and Tista running into her arms. Ras beating Orpal so hard he could not walk for days. "Indeed," he replied to Celia with a growl. "And that is why I despise him and don't want him to touch a single bite of my game." "I get it. I don't even know him and already hate that guy's guts too." "No, I don't hate him," Lid corrected her. "Hate, just like love, it's an irrational feeling, while my contempt for him has sound foundations." Wow, such profound notion from someone so young, worthy of a hunter. Now, enough chit-chat. It's time to get to work. Celia took down the squirrels, passing one to Lit. We will start with the little critters. They are smaller and better for practice, since even if you mess up, it's no big deal. There is not much meat in here. She placed a squirrel on the cutting board and prepared another for Lit. What I am going to teach you stands for most rodents, just in case. If you ever find a rabbit that still has a snow-white fur, bring it to me. It is valuable only until it starts turning brown for the spring. Even a tiny mistake can ruin the fur, lowering its value. Celia handed him the short knife again. If you want me to teach you properly, let's do things my way. Use the knife. Do as I do and follow my instruction. Lit nodded in approval. On the squirrel's back, pinch its height and cut it near the base of the neck so to expose at least half of it. Now, use your index finger and middle finger on both hands to create an opening after you have made the cut. Use your fingers to hook up under the skin and pull one hand towards the rear and the other hand towards his head. During the process, Lit noticed that besides being disgusting, skinning a squirrel was like taking off a sticky wet glove. After Celia showed him how to remove the head, the legs, and the tail. I know it's a bummer, but that's bushy tail, it's no fur. It's all goddamn body hair. You can still use it to stuff things. It's very warm and soft. Now comes the tricky part. When we proceed to go gut anything, be careful while making incisions. If you cut open the bladder or the intestines, the meat is ruined by bile or feces. There is no saving it. This stands for all the animals, so pay attention, kid. Glutting the squirrel was bloody and gruesome, but Lit could already smell the meat at the end of the tunnel, so he barely felt any discomfort. When they finished, Celia put both squirrels on a skewer to roast them in her fireplace. While we wait for our morning snack, I'll show you how to scald the bird for the plucking. As the name implies, water must not be too hot or cold, just enough for you to immerse a finger without getting a burn, but unable to hold the finger in more than a second without burning yourself. That's proper scalding temperature. Celia took a big cauldron, positioning it over the campfire she had already ready, always in the back of her house. It can be a messy job, so it's better to do it outside whenever is possible. The smell of the meat cooking inside was making Lit mouth watery. He could not afford the risk of them burning. Chorun. At his command, the cauldron became immediately filled with water. Lit then stuck his hand in the water, casting, in firo, making it emit steam. Celia whistled again with approval. Fast and efficient. I'm starting to regret this master-apprentice stuff less and less. I now understand why that old hag of Nerea called dibs on you. We should be ready to go, but first... Celia went inside briefly, returning with the 2 little plates of roasted squirrel. Before she could even pass him plate, Lit had already snatched the food, wolfing it down like there was no tomorrow. He sucked and gone until only bones were left. After licking every single of his fingers, he returned to his previous calm and composed demeanor. Good God, such a gentleman! Celia's voice was oozing sarcasm. Would you like another serving? Because that seriously creeped me out and I know a thing or two about. Her mockery fell on deaf ears. Lit's eyes could only see the second square closing in. As soon as Celia pretended to offer him her share, his hands were already moving. After devouring the last squirrel, Lit noticed that Celia was frozen in place. Her mouth was open, but no words were coming out of it, the plate still near his face. He gently put the bones back into the plate. There was no need to hold the plate for me, but thanks, that was very kind of you. Suprememagus, Chapter 15. Changes. After resolving the morning snack incident, Celia prepared the working table for the remaining game. The birds you caught are called blinkers because they get scared easily and are very quick to fly away. Usually, you need luck and skill to take them down from a distance. Whatever magic you perform, it made the clean kill. Aside from the broken neck, both the feathers and the body are unscathed. Lit accepted the compliment with a small bowing. It's just a matter of finesse in using air magic, nothing special. Celia's curiosity was far from being satisfied, but she decided not to pry further. Scalding is easy and quick. You only need to throw the poultry in the cauldron for about 45 seconds. It's better to gently stir the water in the process to clean the birds from dirt and external parasites. It also helps loosening most of the feathers. Never scald too long, or the meat could start to boil. Not to mention the risk of rupturing the organs, ruining the meat. Lit took charge of the scalding process, waving his right hand to take control of the water in the cauldron, stirring it and adjusting the force of the current according to Celia's direction. Damn it, kid, you're really starting to make me regret to have never given a damn about magic or learn it. You don't know how to use magic? Lit was astonished. No, and before today, I was proud of it. I considered charm magic simply a parlor trick. Why waste my time learning how to do things with it when I get faster and better results by using my hands? Celia shrugged. Now get the blinkers out of the water. Time to get serious. Besides the scalding and the plucking that replaced the skinning process, gutting poultry resulted really similar to his previous experience with the squirrel, except he had also to remove the crop, the neck, and the oil gland. Once they finished, Lit eyes enjoyed the results. Noticing that aside from the blinker skin being a little more porous compared to a chicken, it was just a roast away from what he would purchase back on Earth. How do I cook it? Still hungry even after 2 squirrels? The initial... Yes, very. The previous meal was just an appetizer. He was far from satisfied. Please, let's use the outdoor campfire. I need to get used to not using a fireplace. Celia slammed her hand on her forehead. Right. I almost forgot about your family issues. After instructing him how to choose the right spot for a campfire, she showed him how to improvise a kebab with wood sticks. The final lesson was about how high to set the kebab to avoid burning the food, and how to recognize when it was ready to be eaten. After memorizing everything, Lit imbued his eyes with fire magic, activating the fire vision spell that granted him an improved version of thermal goggles. He then started to weave together fire and wind magic, keeping the heat stable with no hot or cold spots, while using air currents to cook every nook and cranny of the meat evenly. Such fine control required for him to move both his hands and feet, to watch his meal from different angles and adjusting the mana flow. His movements were akin to a combination of martial arts katas. Celia was about to mock him about how performing a victory dance for a single blinker was a little extreme when the delicious smell reached her nose. The blinker was getting roasted with a speed visible to the naked eye, the skin turning into a crispy crust, releasing the fat that was masterfully spread evenly. The smell was so good that her stomach started grumbling, despite she had consumed her breakfast less than 2 hours ago. Lid lifted the skewer with spirit magic, and after lowering the temperature to avoid burning himself while eating, he started wolfing down the meat, ripping it apart with his bare hands. First the drumstick, then the breast, and lastly the wings. It lacked salt, and the meat wasn't as tender as roasted chicken, since they had not let the meat undergo any maturation. Nonetheless, it was the best meal Lid had ever had. "I can't believe it. I cannot feel the hunger anymore." Lid fell to his knees from the happiness, his eyes wet on the verge of shedding tears. But that moment passed quickly. "I need more. I can't allow the hunger to cripple me again." Lid looked at the sun. There was still a couple hours before noon. He has still time for more hunting. "Master Celia, I need a favor. I need a place to hide my own game, the one I'm not willing to share." "Just call me Celia. Hunters do not waste time with honorifics. We are practical people." She waved her hand, dismissing for the need of a title. "As for your request, I don't make favors, only deals. What about this? From tomorrow onwards, you will come here every day and clean my house, and maybe from time to time cook something for me with that silly dance of yours. In exchange, I will keep your personal meat safe and sound, and whenever you cook for me, we will share the meal evenly. Deal?" Celia offered him her hand. It was still a rip-off, but it was his only option. "Deal. I only have one rule. I don't do laundry." In the next days, Lid's house resounded with much more laughter and joy than usual. Him bringing game home had raised some questions, but nothing he couldn't explain easily. The food helped everyone to relax and let go of the stress of the past. Even Lid and Orpal started to smooth over their relationship, limiting the glares and insults to a couple every day. But more importantly, Lid could finally start practicing martial arts again. His routine was very simple: hunting in the morning, magical training in the afternoon, martial arts at night. Thanks to the invigoration breathing technique, Lid was now able to stay up for almost a week before being forced to rest. He would sneak out of the house as soon as his live vision spell confirmed that everyone was asleep. Once outside, he would create mud dummies with earth magic to both practice martial techniques and temper his body. His first priority was the footwork. Maybe it was because he was only 4 years old, or more maybe it was the lack of activity due to the previous constant hunger, but his body was embarrassingly clumsy and lacked coordination. Whenever someone threw anything at him, even a chestnut from a meter away, he would either miss it entirely or dunk it on the floor. Lid knew that despite his spellcasting was quick, especially spirit magic, it was not instant. He could not afford to become a sitting duck as soon as someone closed in too much. Learning magic was powerful, but not omnipotent. What good could possibly do to him being able to topple mountains, only to get killed by a random dog that managed to sneak up on him? Even back on Earth, Lid had always thought that considering mind and body as separate entities was dumb. Exercise had always allowed him to relieve his stress and relax his mind. Exactly like studying always allowed him to perform at his best, be it at work or martial arts. Brute strength was just violence. Pure intellect, just ideas with no substance. Only when mind and body were trained together, the body could perform as the mind required. About a week after Lid had begun training, something happened. He was alone at night, practicing footwork by circling around the dummies, when he felt that something was wrong. Pain burst from his mana core and quickly spread it to his whole body, accompanied by a head-spinning nausea, like he had never experienced before. "What's happening to me?" he screamed inwardly. "This can't be a bottleneck. The last one resolved just yesterday, and no bottleneck ever felt like this." Soon he started gasping for air, incapable to stand up anymore and writhing in pain. "I can't die. I don't want to die again. Not after enduring so much. I refuse to become some slave in a distant galaxy or an old man waiting for death. I had enough. I refuse to die." He used all his willpower to convert every iota of his mana into light magic, fighting off the affliction that was tormenting him, but to no avail. The pain got worse and worse, his power incapable of keeping up. When he surrendered, the burning sensation was finally free to rise all the way up to his mouth. Then he started puking lumps of black, sticky substance that looked like tar, but smelled like something had died and rotted for weeks under the summer heat. They were the size of a nut, but the strain he felt was akin to have barfed two elephants walking side by side. The stench was so bad that even in his incapacitated stage, he found the strength to summon some dark magic to destroy them without leaving traces. Lid spent the next minutes spitting, drinking, even eating grass to get rid of that revolting taste in his mouth. When everything returned normal, Lid was too exhausted to practice, so he had to use invigoration to return his body to peak condition. As soon as Lid started executing the breathing technique, he discovered that he was now able to sense his mana core with much greater clarity. While absorbing the world energy with invigoration, he could feel and manipulate the mana flowing through his blood vessels and his organs to the point of visualize even the residual magic in his hair. Despite his eyes being closed shut, Lid could see inside his body as he was observing a state-of-the-art full-body scan 3D. Still dizzy, he tried performing the footwork exercise again. Lid's movements were still far from perfect, but he no longer felt like having two left feet. It's an amazing improvement, considering that until a minute ago, my goal was to stop tripping on my own feet. I wonder. Lid stretched forward his right hand, opening, applying spirit magic to the head of the dummies. The best I could do before, with so many targets at once, was to squeeze them a little. And now he clenched his fist faster and harder than ever before. The dummies' heads popped like balloons. Suprememagus, Chapter 16, Encounters. During the following days, Lid had made several discoveries about the changes he had undergone. His body felt lighter than ever, all his physical abilities augmented, all his senses sharper and heightened compared to before. There had also been cosmetic changes in his appearance. The moles on his body had visibly shrunk, his skin was smoother than after a spa treatment back on Earth, and most of the freckles around his nose and eyes had disappeared. Lid took note of all these changes, trying to understand what had happened, but he could not care less about the beautifying effects. Even with no moles and freckles at all, he would still look like a crude hillbilly. If his mother had passed anything to him, he was unable to notice. Unlike his sisters, Lid had nothing of her beauty or grace. Elena moved like a ballerina, while he was rough and clumsy enough to feel like a caveman. Lid had a deep set of eyes like his father, a high forehead, and a nose a little too big to be proportionate to his visage. He wasn't ugly, but not even cute. The best he could give himself was a solid 6 out of 10. Lid's only hope for improvement was the teenage growth spurt, to get rid of his thin and scrawny build. Figuring out the changing in his mana core required even more time. Lid understood that his mana had undergone a qualitative change, become purer and denser. This allowed him to cast stronger spells, also reducing the time he needed to manipulate elemental and spirit magic, resulting in faster casting speed. Through Invigorate, he could now spot the presence of that tar-like material scattered all around his body, in his organs, blood vessels, and even in neural pathway. Whenever he used accumulation technique, he could feel the smaller tar-like particles being pulled towards the mana core, while the bigger ones would fragment over time, shrinking in size before actually moving. Confident in his new strength, Lid started getting deeper in the woods, hunting for bigger prey. He was no longer afraid of predators. Instead of avoiding them, he started looking out for them. Lid wanted for his family to have enough fur to make a set of warm clothes for everyone. He was sick of being forced to wear so many layers of clothes during winter that he was unable to walk properly, swinging every step like a penguin. The problem was that Lid still moved through the forest, making a lot of noise, exuding enough killing intent to scare away anything that wasn't stupid or desperate enough to stand in his way. It was only thanks to the light vision spell combined with spear magic that he was able to still hunt. The spirit magic range had expanded to over 30 meters range, so he could easily kill any animal that tried to escape by climbing trees or by taking flight. When Lid wasn't able to catch anything, he would shoot down any bird that made the mistake of flying within his scope. One day, Lid was exploring a new area of the Tron Woods, hoping to find the fur-wearing mill, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. While looking at a small mound, his live vision spotted 3 life forces hiding a few meters underground. They were not strong enough to be predators, but they were big enough to be a perfect lunch. If those are rodents or other smart animals, there could be more than one exit. I have no time to waste. I'll force them out. After getting on the highest spot on the mound, always keeping both eyes on the prize, he used earth magic. Mana! The ground around him started to shake, making the burrow and the small tunnels collapse. The creatures started panicking, taking the most direct route out. Lead started running, following their underground movements as close as possible, not letting them get out of the spirit mage range. From a well-hidden hole near a bush came out three big fat rabbits, two of them still wearing a snow-white fur. Lucky! Lead screamed while snapping his finger, forcing the rabbit's neck to a 180-degree turn. I'll keep the brown white for myself, while I'll trade the other two pelts with Selina for some fur of lesser quality, but much more quantity. Today is really my lucky day. Lid was so used being alone in the woods to always think aloud. To break the feeling of isolation, he hung the rabbits to his belt by the ears and started walking towards Seila's house. After a few steps, Lid heard an odd sound closing in. He had never heard it before, so he started looking around for its source. Soon he could see two horses in the distance, galloping in his direction. It seems I have been too loud. Fight or flight? To answer his own question, he activated live vision again. The horses were just horses, while the men were far from impressive. The one taking point was barely as strong as Celia, while the other one behind was weaker than Raz, Lid's father. Lid forced himself to hide a cruel smile. Well, my first encounter with complete stranger in this new world. Are they good people? I bet that humans are humans everywhere. This would mean that they are lowlifes. I can wait to find out. Lid stood there, waiting for them to arrive. The first man was clearly a servant, dressed in a hunter suit made of leather of low quality, with a crest on both his chest and shoulders. He was unshaved, middle-aged man with pitch-black short hair, mean and angry eyes sitting on a face worthy of a mugshot. The one behind him was dressed with a suit of much better quality, probably brand new. He wore the same crest on his chest, but this one seemed to be made of silk and gold embroidery. He was a kid, maybe 16 years old, with a handsome face and the build of a swimsuit model. The tight-fitting leather emphasized his muscular body, moving in tune with his horse. Lid felt really pissed off, and he knew exactly why. I really hope he is as much of a jerk as he is handsome. Otherwise, not only I will be forced to start to believe in Prince Charming, but I will also die of envy. Hey, kid, the servant had a rude tone of voice. What was that noise before? Lid put his best innocent expression, playing wolf in sheep clothes. Good day, sir. I was just hunting. I'm sorry if I scared you. Lid's voice sounded genuinely apologetic. He wanted to give them the benefit of doubt. Where did you get those? He said, ignoring Lid's apologies and pointing at the rabbits. From a rabbit hole. They are my game. Lid smiled, keeping watch on both of them. Give them to us now. They will make a perfect muff for my mother. The handsome youth had also a beautiful voice. If you are really sorry, you should offer us proper compensation. Even a commoner like you should know the basic of decency, he said with a mocking smile. Lit dropped the act like a live grenade. Seriously? Robbing a kid in broad daylight? Don't you have any shame? Kid, the servant rebuked, do you know who are you talking to? He is the son of Barotrath, lord of these lands. Lit started to laugh out loud. Please, Thronwoods has no owner, except maybe Count Lark. Stop swinging nonsense just to cover your sorry ass. And besides, do you know whom you are talking to? I am the supreme mage. See what happens when you waste your breath on commoners, Court? The young noble took up the stout bow he carried on his back, nocking an arrow. They are just too stupid in this nature of things. He shot the arrow with a perfect aim towards Lit's heart, but Lit was far enough and had kept many spells ready on his fingertips. With a wave of his hand, a strong gust of wind hit the arrow on the side, making it spin out of control before harmlessly hitting the ground meters away from its intended target. Despite being flabbergasted, the young noble was able to keep his cool, nocking another arrow while ordering Court to kill the kid. Lit raised his left hand, freezing Court in place with spirit magic, while with the right he took control of the arrow that slipped away from the youth's finger before stabbing him in the eye. The youth fell from his horse, screaming in pain. To think that I ever bothered giving you guys a chance to get out of here alive. Lit sighed, shaking his head. Wait, if you are to kill the young lord, you and whoever you love will die. Think about it. Lit started laughing again. Really? And how could they ever find out what happened here? Lit moved his left thumb, and Court noticed with horror that his right hand was moving against his will, unsheathing the hunting knife he carried at his belt. Wait, please have mercy, don't do this. You are just a kid, he begged. So when you want to kill, you kill. But when you lose, I am supposed to show mercy? The spite in his voice was palpable. Lit lowered his ring finger, bringing the knife at Court's throat. Since you are just a servant, I'll give you a clean death. With a flicker of the little finger, Lit forced Court to cut his throat from ear to ear. Then he approached the young noble, that was still writhing in pain, uncaring of what just happened to his loyal servant. As for you, you are the kind of guy I hate the most. With one hand, Lit kept him frozen at midair, while he used the other to punch him nonstop. You have everything: money, beauty, a bright future, and all you can do with such treasure is screw those who are already struggling to survive? Lit hated humans more than everything. Even back on Earth, the only thing keeping his rage in check was his responsibility towards his family. But in the new world, there was no cameras, no GPS, nothing. There was only power. And for once, he was the one holding it. You know, I have a very ill sister, Lit said after venting out. I could never practice darkness magic on living beings, because using it on animals is just plain cruel. You, on the other side, are just a monster with the face of a man. You will make a perfect specimen for my research. Thronwoods resounded with screams for hours before Death could come to claim her prize. Suprememagus, Chapter 17, Encounters, Part 2. While it was approaching Celia's house, he felt a profound sense of shame tormenting him. It's a shame to waste so much good equipment and horse meat, but I have no plausible excuse for it. Our farm could really use a couple of horses, but what if someone recognized them? Too many risks for so little reward. Destroying everything was the right thing to do. Once he had finished with his experiments, Lid used darkness magic to wipe out any trace or proof of what happened, turning everything into dust. Celia was so excited seeing the two rabbits to let slip her dire need for them, to fill the order of a very generous client. Respecting his master's teaching, Lid exploited the situation. Hunters don't do favors. They make deals, he quoted. In exchange for the snow-white rabbits, Lid managed to get a full set of warm clothes of a lower quality, and Celia would personally tan the remaining pelt for free. That and the three rabbits ready for the cooking earned him great praise from his family, except Orpal. Over time, he had started to consider all the food that Lid brought home for granted, so his hatred and envy returned stronger than ever. That little leech! Hunting with magic is easy. Any idiot could do it. Everything he does is a slap in my face. I never get the respect that I deserve as the firstborn, and it's all his fault. First, he flaunts his luck hunting. Then, he plays the martyr, asking mother and father to let that piece of trash of Tista be the first to have fur clothes. What can Tista possibly do with them? Getting ill with style? No, Lid did it on purpose. He knows that my stupid parents still resent me for telling the truth about that cripple. Lid did it only to make me lose face compared to him. The truth was quite different from Orpal's self-centered interpretation. Lid really loved Eliza, and Tista, while Orpal was never on his mind. He cured anyone in the family without being asked to, except for Orpal, but not out of spite or anger, but simply because his existence was irrelevant in Lid's eye. If Orpal lived or died, it was not his problem. He would not do anything to harm him, but would not help him either. For Lid, they were completely strangers living in the same house. The reason why he had wanted Tista to be the first to benefit from his luck was that Lid hoped that with warm enough clothes, his sister could finally spend more time with him and Eliza during winter, playing in the snow. In Lid's eyes, the image of Carl would often overlap on Twista's visage. He loved them deeply, and both of them were victims of a cruel fate. Lid wasn't willing to let anyone or anything, not even a congenital condition, take his loved ones away from him. He suffered at the thought of how little of life she could enjoy. To give Tista the opportunity to experience speed and the feeling of the wind on her face, Lid built for her a swing with the help of their father Raz. It was nothing special, just a wooden plank attached to 4 tight ropes hanging from a reversed U-shaped wooden frame with triangular standings. Yet the result was awe-inspiring for his family. Swings seemed to be unknown in the New World, or at least they were in the Lustria County. Raz looked at the result of their work in admiration. It's amazing. Why the 3 wooden beams instead of just one? Safety purpose, Lid explained while using earth magic to make the last 10 centimeters of the beam sink underground, making the swing impossible to topple by bad weather or a vigorous movement. That way, both ends are like a chair. Multiple legs mean that the weight is equally distributed among multiple beans, making the stress per bean significantly inferior. Of course, now that you explain it so simple. By the way, how do we call this thing? Lit was at loss for words. He had no idea what the word for the swing movement was, and he could not ask that now. It's a rocking chair. Damn it, why I always screw up with the little details. That's not a rocking chair, but is the closest thing I could think about with my current vocabulary. Tista fell in love with his present, and the rocking chair becomes soon a popular pastime in the family, to the point that Raz had to build a couple more to avoid quarrels. Furthermore, after his experiments with dark magic, Lid spent the following months trying to apply both light vision and invigoration while treating Tista's symptoms. If I can manage to have for Tista's body the same imaging and invigoration grants me for my own body, I could have a better understanding of her underlying condition. That would mean having much better chances of finding a cure. In a blink of an eye, it was almost winter again. Lid's 5th birthday was approaching. Lid was determined to capitalize on every single day before the great cold arrived, to catch as much game he could to fill the house storeroom to the brim. He had no idea how cold the incoming winter would be, and even if he was probably strong enough to survive a storm, he doubted his parents would allow him to test his theory. During the last year, Lid had explored more and more of the Traun woods, learning how to move without alarming the animals. He had also discovered new uses for dark magic. His newest spell, the Shroud, allowed him to cancel out his body's smell and aura by enveloping Lid in thin layer of dark energy, making it impossible for most animals to notice him, either by nose or instinct. But it wasn't an easy task. Even a small misstep would turn the Shroud into full-blown killing intent, making the whole woods aware of his presence. That day, Lit was raiding a new area, deep in the Traun woods, investigating an odd feeling that had tormented him for days. In certain areas of the woods, Lit could hear an annoying buzzing sound, and until that day he had always ignored it. Lit had always thought that it was the call of some weird unknown animal. But in the last days, the noise had gotten stronger and persistent. Damn, whatever this is, it reminds me of my desktop uninterruptible power supply unit whenever there was a blackout. It's ear-piercing. Lit could not help but to imagine it as a desperate cry for help. He did not understand how he got that idea, but his gut was telling him that it was something important. Ever since Lit had learned martial arts back on Earth, he had always followed his gut feeling when he had nothing to lose, and this was definitely the case. The closer he got, the louder the noise. Lit knew he was on the right path. He was running at full speed when he heard a bone-chilling howl. Lit immediately used two of his life-saving spells, Shroud to conceal himself, and the air spell Light's Feet to float a few centimeters above the ground, making his movements noiseless. Both required a lot of concentration, but it was better to spend some mana rather than stupidly endangering himself. Calm and focused, he searched for the source of all that noise. "That's a Rai!" Lit exclaimed inwardly after quickly hiding behind a huge tree. Ori was a magical wolf beast, the apex predator of the Traun Woods. Magical beasts were more common and weaker than monsters, but they could still easily take apart a fully armed soldier. Not many animals could turn into magical beasts. They needed a great talent for magic and enough time to feed off the world energy. Once an animal became a magical beast, it could use its mana to boost its physical prowess and even developing spells that employed elements they were attuned with. The Rai was almost as big as a horse with a fire-colored thick fur. Lid could not understand why a Rai would come so close to a human settling. Rais were intelligent beasts that avoided unnecessary trouble. If humans did not disturb them, they would return the favor. Lid felt pity for its prey. After making sure being upwind, he cancelled both spells to save precious mana, getting a better understanding of the situation. The Rai kept howling and growling as it was in pain. Lid noticed that every time the Rai's note got close to the ground, the buzzing sound would become high-pitched and the magical wolf would whine in pain. Now more curious than afraid, Lid activated live vision to estimate the Rai's power. What he saw made him gasp loudly. The Rai was unbelievably strong, with a mana flow almost on par with Lid's. But the real reason for amazement was a second mana flow that belonged to the source of the buzzing sound. It was a little stone, smaller than a thimble. What in the world? That pebble is alive? That explains everything. The noises emitted by it must have lured here the Rai, just like it did for me. Taking into account its reactions, the noise is much more annoying for the Rai than for me. I never heard of rocks with mana flow. That thing must be a magical item. I cannot let that brute destroy it. Throwing caution to the wind, Lee decided to take action and save the magic stone. The Rai's life force is incomparable to mine, but if I manage to avoid it getting close, I know I can win. His mana flow is inferior to mine, and from what Celia told me, magic beasts have no offensive spell. First, Lee activated Shroud again. Then he started waving his strongest spell, Plague Arrows. A bolt of dark energy flew from his joined hands, hitting the Rai from its blind spot while it was trying again to crack the noisy stone with its teeth. The screeching sound and the spell hit both at the same time, making the magical beast almost lose its footing. Plague Arrow was a spell that injected a dense mass of darkness magic in the victim, disrupting both the mana flow and the life force. Lid had charged it as much as he could to get as much advantage as he could. Before the Rai could turn around to search for its enemy, a stream of lightnings erupted from Lid's palm, hitting the magical beast with enough strength to knock it down. While increasing the distance between them, Lid cancelled Shroud for live vision. Despite the sneak attacks, the Rai was still alive and strong. Lid focused his spirit magic, using both his hands, trying to break its neck as he had done countless times. The Rai wasn't stupid. As soon as it felt the ominous sensation on his neck, it contracted its muscles, reinforcing it with mana and making it harder than steel. Great, so much for my advantage. If only I could use fire magic, you would be already roasted to death. Could you please go away? That thing is mine, mine. Lit conjured several ice javelins, throwing them at the magical beast from multiple angles simultaneously. The Rai easily dodged them all, retaliating with a powerful magical roar. Lit was only saved by the distance, having the time to realize that a massive wind blast was heading his way. He stepped back at the moment of the impact, using his own wind magic to dissipate the blast. His sleeves got turned into confetti, but aside from some flesh wounds, he was fine. Oh, great. Thanks a lot, Celia. Magical beasts do not have offensive spells. Sure, it seems this Rai never got the memo, though. The Rai charged at Lit, using its wind blast to disrupt his rhythm. Lit did his best to keep the beast at bay, but the difference in physical prowess was overwhelming. It was only a matter of time before getting caught. Okay, when you can win, just run. Plan B, fight dirty. Lit stopped running away to prepare his last attack plan before throwing the towel. He conjured many ice javelins, but did not throw them. He left them floating in midair all around him. After a moment of hesitation, the Rai chose to ignore them, charging straight at that insolent pest. That's a good boy. Eat this. Twin spell. Flash and bang. Lit's right hand produced a massive flash of light. For a moment, it was like a second sun had appeared. His left hand instead used wind magic to produce a noise comparable to an explosion. The right tumbled from the pain, its eyes and ears bleeding, while Lit was unscattered. He had learned long ago that as long as it was infused with his mana, his own spells would do him no harm. He could cover himself in fire, ice, or lightning without a scratch. When the Rai crashed against a tree, Lit finally used the javelins, throwing them with all the force he had. All of them hit the target, but the thick magical fur prevented them from impaling it, piercing it only through a few centimeters of flesh. Lit immediately checked his live vision. The results were appalling. The Rai was definitely wounded and weakened, but far from being dead. Damn it, so much effort for so little damage. If it continues like this, am I the one who is most likely to run out of steam or luck? The Rai only needs one hit to kill me. It's not worth the risk. Lit used spirit magic to recover the magic stone before running for his life. The stone was full of teeth marks. Its sharp surface prickled Lit's skin. So long, sucker, Lit screamed at the still stunned magical beast. See you again in a few years. Let's see if you dare attack me again. Small drops of blood touched the stone and the noise stopped. The Rai was still trying to make heads or tails of what just happened. It only wanted the damn noise to stop hurting his ears when that fierce man pup showed up. The Rai had tried to scare him away to teach him a lesson, but it ended to be the one getting schooled instead. Bah, who cares? The Rai thought. I wanted to get rid of that stupid rock, and in one way or another, I got the job done. That was one feisty pup, though. I pray that he shows more consideration towards his pack than he did for me. Otherwise, when he grows up, he will be a scourge to his kin. Stupid humans and their greed bring only troubles. They are incapable even of taking care of their own. The Rai, leader of all the packs in the Tron Woods, shrugged away the javelins before returning to its family. Suprememagus, Chapter 18. New Solutions, New Problems. Lit kept running until he was out of the woods, turning his head from time to time to check with the live vision if he was being followed. There is no trace of the rye, but better be safe than sorry. I'm afraid I have pissed off that thing quite bad. It's better to give it some time to vent off and search for easier prey. He was near Celia's house when he finally remembered about the magical stone. Lid activated live vision, getting a good look up close. The first thing he noticed was that the raw edges of the stone had smoothened up. It did not prick his skin anymore. The surface was still rough, but now looked like a stone marble. The buzzing sound had stopped for a while, and the magical stone's life force, despite being still at the same level, had changed significantly. Back when he saw it for the first time, its life force was like a candle, about to burn out of wax. Now, it had become steady, with a regular pulse. Warning Celia about the magical beast took priority, so he hid the stone in a leather pouch he always carried at his neck before knocking at her door. It explained her everything, describing in detail the size and power of the rye, leaving her flabbergasted. Of course, he never mentioned their fight. Lid told her that he had fled as soon as their eyes met, and that he got away only thanks to his magic, showing his tattered sleeves as a proof. Good gods, kid! She still refused to call him by his name. You have been really lucky. It took it easy on you. Had the rye decided to give you chase, we would not be having this conversation. Nonetheless, thanks for the warning. Instead of going to your parents, Celia ruffled his hair. How do you know I came here first? Because if you didn't, your parents would have probably locked you up in your house, and one of them would have come here to warn me in your place. Lid froze up. He had just dodged a bullet much scarier than any rye. You are right. It's better not to tell them. Otherwise, my hunting days may be over forever. Yes, I suggest you taking the rest of the morning off. Make up an excuse for those leaves and go home. Celia walked over the shed near her house where she kept her game maturating. Take this as a thank you for the heads up. She handed him a rabbit and a blinker, ready to be cooked. I was about to go in the woods. I think I will follow my advice instead and keep tanning the remaining pellets. I'll go to hunting in the afternoon when it should be safer. Lid thanked her with a deep bow. He knew how precious meat was in Lutia, even for a huntress as good as Celia. Not to mention she had just saved him from perpetual house arrest. He spent the rest of the morning trying to understand how to use the magic stone. It appeared to be feeding off Lid's mana, not leeching it like a parasite, more like nibbling at the mana that he naturally released, being talented in magic. The stone would simply breathe in what Lid's body breathed out, nothing more. Lid tried injecting mana into it, but to no avail. Then he casted elemental spells while holding the stone to check if their strength, cast speed, and area of effect were affected in any way. All his experiments gave no results. The stone looked just like any other. Stones do not have such a clear mana flow, and certainly they do not have any life force. Maybe this thing needs time to heal, to recharge, or something. The rye messed it up quite bad. Let's hope it's not broken. Unless it starts harming me, I'll keep it. Maybe it's some kind of treasure, or maybe I can find something about it on Nana's book. I just have to be patient. The last days of autumn passed on uneventful until winter arrived. Having reached the 5 years of age, Lit revealed a little more of his magic talents, proving to be invaluable to his family. He would wake up first and warm up the whole house with magic, even the floors. At that point, the fireplace was lit only because it was cozy and because rounding up around the fire, especially during the stormy winter evenings, was a family tradition. Even the cooking was entrusted to Lit. Elena would prepare the meal and Lit would cook it faster and better than a ventilated oven, keeping the soup warm for everyone during the whole meal. He could not go hunting anymore because of the bad weather. His parents had been adamant on that. But Lit could still go to Celia's house to perform the chores for her. During the last year, she had become so lazy to become dependent on Lit for keeping her house clean and her tools sterilized. This meant killing 2 birds with 1 stone for Lit. Now he had an excuse to go fetch his private stock of meat whenever he got hungry. And Celia had to pay him for the chores. Lit would do it for free, just to get out of the house, but his parents would not agree. So Celia paid him a few copper coins to clean her house and some more for Elena to do her laundry. Both Elena and Raz would welcome any extra income, and doing the laundry for 8 instead of 7 wasn't much of an effort, especially since Lit provided her an endless supply of hot water. "Nice to meet you. I'm Lit, Boiler Supreme," he would grumble inwardly every time. In the first weeks of winter, Lit made a very important breakthrough. He finally understood how to use Invigoration's body imaging on others. He was now able to let his mana seep into another person's body and slowly take control of their mana flow, allowing Lit to know everything about the subject's physical condition. The only way to achieve such a result was to keep physical contact, searching way-ins for the mana without harming him or her. Lit immediately used it on Tista, and his findings were appalling. Her body was full of the tar-like substance that, for the lack of a better term, he had dubbed impurities, and the cause of that was her lungs. Barely half of Tista's lungs were made up by a healthy tissue. The rest appeared like a black-brown mass that actively produced impurities that, over time, filled the healthy tissues of her lungs and windpipe, making her cough first and yell later. After giving it some thought, Lit was sure to have found a fix better than everything he had done before, but much more embarrassing. Even though now his real age was that of a 30-year-old man, he was still in a 5-year-old body, which found extremely uncomfortable the idea of speaking of certain matters, especially with a family woman. After some deep breaths to calm down, he called Ross and Elena to ask for their help and permission. He had to dumb down the procedure quite a lot to get them to understand. "Basically, I cannot cure Tista, not yet, but I discovered a way that should make her feel much better. In the best case scenario, she could even get rid of most of her symptoms." "And in the worst case scenario?" Raz asked, full of worries. "At worst, she will be the same. That I'm certain of it. But I need you to trust me." Contrary to his expectation, they did not make any objection or question. They trusted in Lit. Mastery of magic was boundless, and in their eyes, he was just a 5-year-old, while Tista was barely 7. She had yet to mature in every way. For them, it was like yesterday when they bathed together in the washtub. The first phase was the easiest. Lit would take control of Tista's mana flow, overloading her body with his mana and forcing the impurities to move away from the inner organs and toward the skin. She would just feel hot the whole time, like having a mild fever. Once most of the impurities were about to surface, Lit demanded to be blindfolded and that either Elena or Eliza witness the process. Tista was just a kid, and Lit feared that over time suspicions might arise. During Earth's Middle Ages, incestuous relationships were distinguishingly common, and he rejected even the idea of being thought of as a pervert. The second and the last phase required Tista to be soaking in the washtub that had been previously filled by Lit with hot water and soap. He clearly remembered the stench the impurities gave off, and during winter, ventilation in the house was difficult, especially in Tista's condition. Cold was her worst enemy. Then he could finally extract the impurities by using matter magic, creating and manipulating flows that would massage Tista all over her body. Lit would destroy the impurities as soon as possible with dark magic, preventing them to release their smell. It was a difficult process that required using water and darkness magic, all while keeping invigoration active. After the treatment, he would also use water magic to remove all the water still on her body and then mix fire and wind magic to obtain a makeshift hairdryer. When it was finally over, Tista looked like she was just back from the spa, while it looked like he had just got back from mining, drenched in sweat and out of breath. "How do you feel?" Tista made some deep breaths. "I never felt so good, like ever. Also, I always dreamt of having a winter bath, instead of having to resort to warm water-soaked towels. Thanks, little bro. You just made two of my wishes come true." She tried to hug him, but he raised his arms in defense. "Please no, I'm disgusting right now. Do not ruin my hard work. I now need a bath, some food, and 2 hour rest, minimum." Both his mother and big sister nodded. "Lit dear, what was that thing with the water that you did?" Elena asked. "Do you mean the... Damn it, I can't tell her I was imitating a hydro massage. They do not have Latin here, nor I can call it jacuzzi or something. Whatever, I'm too tired for this." Water massage?" "Yes, that. It seems so relaxing. Tista has fallen asleep many times during her treatment. Sure, it must be pleasant." Elisa's words were filled with expectation. "And that thing for drying her hair? Could you do that again too?" Elena raised the ant, their aim more and more obvious by the second. Lit was on the verge of collapsing. He had no time to spare for niceties. "Are you implying that you would like a hot water massage too?" More nodding following, their hands joining a silent prayer. But, Lit shuddered. "Both of you are..." He was trying to find a polite way to say hot. Lit could still remember Elena's naked body when he was still an infant, and she had aged very well. Eliza was now 11. Maybe it was the countryside lifestyle, maybe it was related to the New World, but she had already begun her growth spurt, developing some curves, being nice and soft in all the right places. Lit already had so many qualms for his little sister, and Tista was flat as a board. Only her long hairs gave her away as a girl instead of a boy. "We are family," and all of us have dreamt of being able to take a bath during winter without catching cold or worse. You have no idea how smelly we become by working in the barn, surrounded by the livestock smell and their dung. Sometimes the smell is so bad we can even sleep at night. Couldn't you help us too? Elena, his mother, completely oblivious to Lid's worries, tried to play the guilt card. Lid gave up. Fine, just let me rest a bit and then I'll help you. But you still need to blindfold me, and I demand a witness. They both started to laugh out loud. Why so many qualms? You are just a baby, not some thug. I would like to say that I am a gentleman, but I do not know the word for it. I could say that I am a man, but that would make them laugh even harder. Stupid 5-year-old body, he thought. Decorum. It was the only word in his vocabulary he could resort to. Damn, this is going to be a freaking long winter. Suprememagus, Chapter 19, Conflicts. As Lid predicted, his fifth winter revealed to be quite interesting. Treating Tista's condition required 2 sessions per week minimum, each one lasting around 4 hours. 2 for the treatment itself, and the remaining time for him to bathe and recover his strength. Manipulating Tista's mana flow while simultaneously using fire, water, and dark magic took its toll every time. The good news was that with so much practice, he was becoming accustomed to casting and maintaining several spells active at once. Every treatment was easier than the previous one, and her symptoms were quickly improving. Tista was now able to help with the house chores and the livestock. She could even afford making long walks outside when the weather was good. The bad news was that Lid's relationship with his brother was now uglier than ever before. Every time Tista got better, someone would reproach Orpal for his past words, and if no one did, then Tista would. Orpal's fits of rage had really hurt her. His cruel words had shattered the image she always had of her perfect family, of her caring big brother. Tista had been humiliated and betrayed, and she was not going to forget that easily. Also, soon after hot winter baths had become available, Raz too started to bathe often. Orpal and Tryon were the only ones left out. Orpal because he could not stand the thought of having to ask something from Lid, especially if he had to do it politely. I am the eldest brother. I am not supposed to beg runs for favors. I am supposed to give orders and be respected for it. That leech now has turned even the cripple against me, and I can't put Tista in her place. Otherwise, she will make me look like I'm the bad guy who picks on the sick little girl. Such a scheming girl. Tryon was between a rock and a hard place. He deeply loved Tista, but he also loved and respected Orpal. Tryon was the only one by his side, so he had not the heart to betray their bond. With everyone else fresh and clean, their smell stuck out like a sore thumb. Even with all their family goodwill, disgusted grimaces were impossible to avoid from time to time. The first time Tista dubbed the duo as Orpoop and T-Rick, she brought down the house with laughter. Orpal and Tryon blamed Lid for their humiliation, but he just ignored them like he always did. Raz made for Lid a pair of snowshoes, spending more and more time with him. Raz also started imparting him lessons about how to operate a farm and teaching how to carve wood. Lid was still very young, but knowing he was able to skin and gut his game, Raz thought there was no risk for him in handling a carving knife. Orpal and Tryon lived the situation differently. Until then, Lid had spent most of his time with the girls, letting Raz spend all his free times with the boys. They felt wrong twice. Once because Lid was robbing them of their that time. The second because he always refused teaching them carving wood before they reached the age of 8. Things got even more unpleasant for Lid after midwinter. Every time he would treat Tista, he could notice that something was off. Both his mother and sister had an odd look in their eyes. Often they would open their mouth only to close them right away, giving him the silent treatment for hours. Lid couldn't figure out the reason of this behavior, so his mind started spinning like crazy. Do they believe me a pervert? Have I looked at them in an inappropriate way? Maybe they are starting to suspect something. Maybe they know I am from a different world. Lid's full-blown paranoia wouldn't give him a second of rest, preventing him to have a good night of sleep. He heard them sighing too often. Something was definitely off. It took Lid all his courage to muster the strength to face them and ask for the truth. The confrontation took place in the girls' room, where they all gathered for Tista treatment. Lid, did you really not notice any changes? Elena asked, pouting. Yes, I did. Tista is feeling much better now, right? Of course there's that. But don't you notice anything here? She waved her hand, going from Tista's head to toes. That's my sister. And, she prompted, her health is getting better, nothing is getting worse. Tista is still Tista. For the first time in his 3 lives, Lid could spectate with his own eyes a synchronized facepalm outside the internet mimic GIFs. Eliza was fuming. Really? Don't you notice that her hair is soft and silky? That it never tangles or gets split ends? Tista had light brown hair with shades of purple all over them. Ever since the treatment began, the color had got more vibrant and visible. Shades of purple, ugh, this is really another world after all. I wonder why women do have them and men don't, Lid thought. Now that you mention it, yes, I do. But normally I don't care for hair. I keep mine short for a reason. Eliza shook her head. Don't you even notice that her skin has gotten smoother with no imperfections? That she is growing taller and slender than her peers? Lid kept scratching his head. He knew nothing about the average girl. Also, they were simply describing the side effects of removing impurities. And why is that a problem? Aren't those all good things? This time, even Tista joined a facepalm. They are envious of those things, dummy. They just want you to do the same for them. Lid was flabbergasted by such trivial demands. All those grimaces, the silent treatment, all of it for such a stupid reason? Lid, dear, being attractive for a girl is a pretty big deal. For your sisters, could mean getting the possibility to choose between just a wealthy man and a good, wealthy man. It can affect their entire life, their happiness. That sounded right to Lid's ears. How could have I not thought of that? While for your poor mother, it means that she can finally make all those pompous, high and mighty neighbors of her that keep bragging about having so much more money than her, flaunting all the pricey beauty creams they can afford, kicking themselves out of envy. That sounded right to Lid's ears too. He accepted with a sigh, and his life finally returned to normal. He had to spend at least 3 afternoons a week for all the treatments, but it was worth it. All that practice made his mana core grow steady and fast. His control of mana and cast speed improved by leap and bounds. Right before the end of the winter, he was forced to take in a new customer. With the weather improving, the neighboring families started meeting often, sometimes for a visit. More often they would simply bump into each other while trading goods at the village. And that was driving Raz crazy. Lit, you have to help me. His plea was desperate. Your mother looks at least 10 years younger, and I am starting to look more like her father rather than her husband. People keep murmuring low how she was unfortunate to marry me, that she could have got so much better. Please do your thing on me too. Lid had heard the rumors. They were mean and petty, and deserved to be faced head on. He would not allow anyone to speak ill of his dad. Fine, but only at some conditions. The same I ask from Mom. 1. Secrecy. No one must ever know outside of you and me. Think of all the bad people that could want to exploit me. Raz nodded. 2. You will never talk about it with Orpal or Tryon, nor ask me to do it for them. I don't care if they fall on love or want to marry. They made pretty clear what they feel towards me and Tista. I will not endanger my safety for them. Take it or leave it. Raz wanted to object, reminding Lid that they were a family too. But their behavior had only gotten worse after being forced to spend so much time together during winter. Raz had to scold them multiple times just to make them behave properly. I can only hope that when they grow up, my sons will be able to mend their relationship. I can force them to get along. And so he accepted. A few weeks later, Lit was headed to Celia's house for the usual cleaning before going hunting. The dawn's light made the world around him look like out of a fairy tale. The thin layer of snow was immaculate, reflecting the orange light over the weeds and trees along the way. His surroundings were completely silent, the world still and at peace. At the next clearing, Lid took out the magic stone out of his pouch, observing it in the morning light. During the winter months, the magic stone had mended most of the teeth mark. Both its life force and mana flow had tremendously improved, but it was still useless as the day Lid found it. Just my luck, he sighed. I risked my life facing that rye for nothing. Let's hope I can find something in Nana's book. Otherwise, my only option is to find someone willing to buy it. Lid was really impatient to start his apprenticeship. It meant being finally able to study magic from books instead as a self-taught. Also, as an apprentice healer, he would get practice magic and be paid for it, gaining the village recognition and respect. So many birds with just one stone. After putting the magic stone back into the pouch, Lit arrived at his destination and opened the door. That day, Celia was out of town to sell her merchandise, so she had left the door open for him. It didn't take him much time to clean everything and leave. As soon as he walked out of the house, he got hit in the head by a wooden stick. Lit's eyes went blurry. He felt someone pushing him back inside, making him fall to the ground with a kick in the stomach. "Look who's here! The little lich!" Lit recognized that voice. He was one of Orpal's friends. 4 boys quickly surrounded Lit, kicking him while he was still down, while a 5th closed the door, after checking that no one did notice them. "You little arrogant! Orpal told us about you, how you humiliate him every day, how you even dare stealing his food." "Yeah," another one yelled. "He is your big brother. It should be him getting the best part of the game, not you, little ungrateful runt." Less yelling and more kicking, Trent. Remember Orpal's words. If Lich gets the chance to use his magic, we are finished. Despite Lit was curling up, desperately trying to shield his head and stomach, another kick grazed his face, making one of his baby teeth fall. "I know what to do." Trent moved forward, gripping Lit's hands with enough strength to crush them. "Let's see how he does magic without hands." By coming that close, Trent had forced his friends to stop kicking, and in a moment, that was all that Lit needed. He released all the lightning he could muster, choking Trent out cold. But before he could do anything else, the wooden stick hit him in the head again, making him collapse. "You, how dare you hurt your seniors? You deserve to die." The beating resumed, this time with no hint of mercy or holding back. Lit started coughing blood and teeth. The 4 had him surrounded. Lit tried multiple times rolling out of the encirclement, but he would be sent back in the middle every single time. Lots of feelings were ravaging his mind, while his body was burning with pain. The spite for his brother's betrayal, the rage of being assaulted by boys with double his age and size, but most of all, he felt helpless and afraid of death. Damn magic! What use are you if you don't have the time to concentrate? Stupid stone, I kept you hanging from my neck for months. Do something. Help me. Somebody, anyone, help me. All his silent pleas were unfulfilled. While his conscience was fading, Lee started cursing himself for his weakness and helplessness. Magic, martial arts, all that careful preparation, useless. Oddly, his last thought was not for his family or revenge, but for his last opponent. If I only was as strong as Rai. He stopped my spirit magic so easily by his survival instinct kicking, his mind and body acting in unison, by infusing himself with mana. And I can do that too. It's the same principle behind life and fire vision. With each breath, he started calling upon elemental energy. But instead of wasting time giving it a form, let it merge directly with his mana core, infusing himself with earth magic. His whole body starting hardening, the pain getting duller and duller. Lit also infused himself with light magic, accelerating his healing and preventing himself from losing consciousness. Soon, he was able to ignore the kicks, springing back up in one fluid motion. What is Earth? It's just a mix of minerals and organic matter, the same as my body. I can be immovable like a mountain. With that thought, he further hardened his head before head-butting from below the chin of the assailant in front of him. Before the remaining three could recover from the surprise and resume the encirclement, Lit raised his guard, the left arm forward for blocking, the right arm ready to strike. Orpal friends were scared after Lit knocked down their leader with a headbutt. The only thing on their mind was to prevent him to use magic, so they rushed forward, not giving him time to recover. The closest assailant tried to punch Lit in the face, to disrupt any casting he could attempt. 60% of the human body is made of water. I can be formless like water. Lit's left arm, imbued with water magic, coiled around his opponent's right arm like a snake. The body burns calorie to produce heat and energy. I can be destructive like fire. Fire magic burned through his muscle, granting Lit short bursts of explosive strength. By flexing his left arm, Lit broke the immobilized limb in 3 points: elbow, ulna, and radius, while his right fist hit the opponent on the nose, pulverizing it. The pain made the boy faint, his nose bleeding profusely. The remaining two fell into panic and tried to run away. Nerves, synapses, all the information and orders in the body are transmitted via electrical impulse. I can be fast as lightning. Lit imbued all his body with air magic, becoming fast enough to blink in front of them, punching both in the gonads and at the same time. All of his opponents were down, sobbing in pain, or fainted. Lit spit a mouthful of blood while contemplating the results of his latest experiment. Seems that his new magic puts too much strain on my body. Maybe I'm too young, maybe I took too much damage. Whatever. I have all the time in the world now. I need to decide what to do with you all, Lit said while using light magic to heal his internal injuries. It may take a while, but you'll get my undivided attention. Enjoy your stay. Lit sat on the couch, his left hand on the chest, performing the healing. The right one was open in front of him, releasing 5 streams of lightning that enveloped the 5 boys like tendrils, making them scream with agony. Suprememagus, Chapter 20. Breakups. The original plan was to kill them all, erase the evidence, and then make Corporal have an unfortunate accident. As Lit calmed down, however, he realized that it was an idiotic plan full of holes. If 5 young men disappear suddenly in a sleepy village like Lutia, it is bound to cause a commotion. Also, Urpal knows they were here. Once he discovers they are nowhere to be found, he could come too close to the truth for comfort. I don't want to give him any kind of leverage on me. There is also the possibility that these blockheads share their plan with their siblings. Killing is the wrong answer here. Too many things can go spiraling out of control. Worst of all, if I make Corporal disappear too, the whole family would worry and grieve for him. Most certainly, I don't want to turn him into a martyr. I want him to pay, to suffer for his whole life. While in deep thought, Lit would release streams of lightning from his right hand, keep the spell active for a couple of seconds, then give his assailants a few moments of relief before zapping them again. They had already lost control of their bladder and bowels multiple times. When they were not writhing in pain, they were sobbing and begging for mercy. I can let off this trash easily either. Always remember to pause between lashes. The short interval without pain fills them of false hope that is finally over, making the next hit more painful than the previous. To punish them is not enough. I want to break them. There were too many variables. Lit was sick of running circles, so he decided to resort to a modified version of his very first plan, back on Earth. Those guys were trash too. I wonder how they reacted after my death, when the photos got leaked all over the internet with their names tagged. Lit had a cruel smile at the thought of his revenge, backstabbing them after so many years. A final spell, Lit made the five lose consciousness and started arranging their bodies with spirit magic. I must keep both spirit and fusion magic a secret, so I need to create a stage from which I could end up a winner with just normal magic. An encirclement is too much for a 5-year-old. I'll fan them out. He put back the wooden stick in the hand of his owner, making sure it was smeared with blood. It was arranging the final details when he heard someone calling his name from afar. I took too much time thinking. My family must have sent someone looking for me. This screws up a good plan. Damn it, I must play it by ear and hope they did not send Orpal or it's going to get ugly. Lit looked through a window, spotting Alina approaching Celia's house with long and fast strides. Good, it's Mom. Elisa or Dad would have been better, but I can work with this. When she got close enough, Lit responded to her call with a moan, slowly opening the door while begging for help. Elena started running with all her strength, and once inside, what she saw was bone-chilling. There was blood everywhere, teeth on the ground, and Lit was almost unrecognizable. He was losing blood from multiple injuries. His face was swollen to the point that his eyes were barely visible amidst all the black and the blue. Lit was holding his left arm like it was hurt, and just by talking he could make her notice his bleeding gums and missing teeth. Mom, thank the God it's you. Lit's voice was distorted by the injuries into a sleep. I was so afraid they would get up before I could call for help. They tried to kill me, Mom, and I have not the strength to fight anymore. Elena quickly embraced him, feeling him yelp and shivering from the pain caused by even such a gentle touch. My baby, my poor baby, who did this to you? The two of them started to cry at the same time. Elena because she was scared to death, Lit because while in his mother's embrace he could finally allow himself to vent all his rage and fears. Orpal, it's Orpal's fault. These are all his friends. They even told me their plan when they thought I was about to die. Elena was shocked by those words, refusing to believe such a terrible thing. But those 5 really were Orpal's closest friends. One of them, Rizal, was even holding his grandfather's wooden stick, and it was stained with blood. Elena looked at Lit's head, easily spotting the bruises and cuts shaped after the cane. Why would they assault you otherwise? And how could they possibly know that today Celia was out of town? Elena thought out loud. Among the sobbing and crying, Lid was inwardly smiling. Feeding her facts was a last resort. It would have such a deeper impact if she put the pieces together by herself. "Can't you heal yourself, even a little bit?" Elina's voice was full of worry. Her son's condition seemed dire. Lid was expecting this question. "Now that I have the time to recover, I could, but I won't." "Why?" That answer made no sense to her. Elena started worrying his injuries were affecting his mind. "Because when you and Dad decide to do with Warple, I want you to take a good look of what he did to me," Lid screamed, coughing a mouthful of blood from a wound he had reopened on purpose. "Warple has always hated me, always will, no matter if I help you all with chores or your health. He does not care how much game I bring to the table or money to our house. Nothing is ever enough for him." Lid kept screaming and sobbing. "Am I such a awful son, such a terrible brother to deserve this?" Lid hugged her with all of his strength, bawling his eyes out. Elena was at loss of words, but only for a moment. She held her son tightly, raising him up from the ground and carrying him back home. Then she brought the whole family to Celia's house to let them witness the scene with their own eyes. The matter was too serious. She could not hide it from her children. When Orpal saw Lid, he became pale as a ghost. Elena refused to call him by his name, and if glares could kill, he was certain that she would make him leave the field's feet first. What the heck went wrong? Those morons knew the plan. They had only to rough him up, teach him respect and humility, but most importantly, to force him to shut his mouth up. Now, my stupid parents will never let me hear the end of it. And when he saw all the blood on the floor with his friends still there and out cold, he felt his life falling apart. As soon as Elena let him do it, Raz embraced Lid before checking his condition. After that, he looked around the room, easily recognizing the 5 culprits. "Eliza, go call their parents. Take Tista with you. I don't want her to hear what I'm about to say." Raz was even paler than Orpal, clenching his fist so hard that they started to bleed. Elena had whispered to him 3 words after coming back with Lid. Orpal did it. In the beginning, he had refused to believe that one of his beloved children could do something like that, but the truth appeared so horrifyingly simple to his eyes. No one outside his family knew that Lid worked for Celia. No one else could possibly know that exactly on that day and time Lid would be leaving home to go to Celia's house alone. But that most painful and irrefutable truth was that no one but Orpal could possibly resent Lid so much. He barely knew anyone outside of his family and their closest friends. Lid had always been working so hard to help all of them, especially Tista, that he never had time to make friends or enemies. Raz felt those thoughts ripping his heart out of his chest, but he had to know. "Did you do it?" Raz looked Orpal straight in the eyes. A terrible silence fell in the room, revealing the truth that Raz was trying so hard to deny, looking for a possible alternative explanation. But there wasn't any. How? How could you possibly do this to your brother? Tears were streaming from his eyes. Dad, I swear it's not like you think. I can't explain. Orpal's mind was desperately trying to find a plausible excuse. Is there anything to explain? Roz roared out of anger. Aren't those your friends? Yes, but it wasn't you telling them what to do. It wasn't you planning how, when, and where to ambush it, causing him to be almost beaten to death. In the God's name, how could you possibly explain all that? Because that wasn't the plan. They didn't listen to me, just like you. You never listen to what I say. You never let me have my way, always siding with Leech and the cripple. You are never on my side, never. They got carried away? Is that your explanation? Raz didn't know if to laugh or cry. Do you mean that ambushing and beating your brother, my son, is perfectly fine as long as they do it with moderation? He raised his fist, tempted to give Orpal a taste of his own medicine, but Elena stopped him. Too much blood has already been shed today. Don't do it. You'd only harm yourself. He is beyond saving. Elena was crying too, but her face and tone were stone cold. She had already made up her mind. Raz was too broken to stand anymore. He needed to sit down on a chair, weeping. You are right, my love. I have lost count of times I have tried to make him understand that respect is something that you must give before receiving it yourself. That we were his parents, not his friends. We are supposed to help our children understand their mistakes, not enabling them. The gods know if I haven't tried to teach him that his siblings were not his servants, that the man's authorities lies in the responsibilities he shoulders, not how strong he is. I know I have not been a perfect father, but I did the best I could. I don't know what to do with him anymore, Elena. Raz wiped his own tears, looking for his wife's support. I agree. Even now he doesn't show any remorse. He never loved his brother, stealing his food and calling him names, even before Lid was able to walk. He is clearly unable to understand the enormity of what he did. I believe that if we allow this to continue, he will do it again, if not to Lid, to Tista. And I'm not going to let him doing more harm to our family. She held Raz's hand tight, searching for the strength she needed. I think we should disown him, strip him of his name, and report him together with his accomplices for attempted murder to the village militia. Thanks, my love. Raz had no more tears to cry. His resolve stilled like his voice. I don't think I had it in me the strength to say it.